Hey YouTube, what's going on? Welcome back to the shop. Today I want to show you guys this. This is a AGT 1.5 ton mini excavator. One of the very common China import Temu mini excavators. All kinds of different names for them. But we just picked this one up at the Ritchie Brothers auction. I've used it a little bit. It definitely suffers from a few issues. Some of them are pretty common issues. And they're usually pretty easy to fix. Lots of online resources for what to do and how to fix them and upgrades to do. So I'm going to be doing a couple of upgrades today. The main upgrade is going to be adding a 10-inch. Some guys or some people online are saying you can do an 8-inch is enough, but I'm going to do a 10-inch fan. Going to add compression springs underneath of the pilot controls, and then I've also got some of this kill mat, which is like a heat and sound deadening material. I've got some of this left over from an antique truck I had, so I'm going to go ahead and mount some of it on the bottom of the seat and inside the engine compartment here, just to try to keep some of the heat. This panel's kind of where your legs sit on the other side, and it gets really hot when you're operating. Same with this. And then the fan, I believe I'm going to mount right here, kind of where this louvered section is, and I'm going to have it blowing out, and the hope is that by having the fan blowing out there, that it's going to pull cool outside air through this set of vents kind of across the carburetor. So what happens when you're operating the machine, get a little better view of where the carburetor sits right there. Right there. So what's happening is, as the machine gets hot, in my experience, after about half an hour, it gets hot enough that it starts to vapor lock the carburetor, and then the machine starts to spit and sputter and just overall does not run very smoothly, and then eventually gets to a point where it won't run at all and you have to let it cool off for a period of time. So this isn't really a how-to. There's a lot of resources online for what to do with these, but I'll show you how I'm going to do it. And if you notice anything or if you have any questions, just put them down there in the comment section. So I'm going to start with doing the control pilot springs, because these are relatively easy. I don't believe there's even any tools required to do it. I just bought the springs on Amazon, as well as the radiator fan. So these are the little springs here. They're 13 millimeter outside diameter, 15 millimeter long, and a 1.2 millimeter wire size. I'll put a link in the description for all of this stuff for my Amazon account. So a link for the springs, the kill mat, and the radiator fans that I used for these mods. So for these, all you have to do is remove this boot. And you're going to want to just flip your control all the way to one direction and slide that spring over just like that. You're going to put one of these on each one of the valves. So according to some of the Facebook groups and online groups for these significantly smooth out your controls just by adding that little bit of extra spring pressure. It makes the controls a lot less jerky, and it smooths out the motion considerably. And then once you have the springs in place, just go ahead and pop this rubber boot back over the controls, and we'll go over and do the other side. Okay, there it is. I'll go over to this side and repeat the process. I bought these, came as a 10-pack on Amazon, so I will have a couple of extras just in case, maybe if one of them breaks. Alright, and that's the pilot control springs all installed. Like I said, that was about as easy as it gets. Now I'll kind of walk you through the radiator fan. So the plan is to mount the fan over this set of louvers, but on the inside. So the fan has a few different mounting options. It's got some holes here kind of around the flange, but it also comes with some brackets that clip into the side here. So these are the clips that come with it. There's 4 of them in the kit with the fan. And there's multiple positions all around the fan where this can be mounted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in these 4 corners here to start. And then I could always move them around if they're going to interfere with any of the louvers here when we go to mount it. So to try to make my life easy and not have to try to do this all from inside the machine, I'm just going to kind of place this over this louvered section and try to center it as best I can. And then I will mark all the holes from the outside, making sure that we're pretty level and we're as centered on the louvered section as we can get it. And then I'll go ahead and mark these with a Sharpie. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and drill and tap my 4 holes for 1/4 or a 6mm screw. Okay, so I've got my 13/64 drill bit, 1/4 inch tap, center punch, and some 1/4 inch bolts. I'm going to go ahead and drill and tap those 4 holes and we'll get the fan mounted up. Okay, now that our holes are drilled, I'm going to go ahead and deburr them on both sides, and then I've got some tapping fluid there. We'll go ahead and tap our 4 holes. I'm using this Emuge. This is an excellent tapping fluid. It's thick enough that it doesn't kind of run everywhere, but thin enough, like, I know some guys really like that Anchor lube, but I find it's really thick. Or this is just thick enough that it doesn't really drip off of the tap. Okay, and that's it for that. Now we can go ahead and mount the fan inside. Might be a little bit hard. I'll try to get some video, but it's pretty tight space. Like I said, it's going to be kind of hard to video this because I'm mounting it right there. So I'm guessing you're going to get a lot of video of the back of my head. But it's pretty simple. I'm just going to put this up inside of there, line up our 4 1/4 holes, tighten the bolts down. Okay, fan is all mounted in there now. What I'll go ahead and do, even though I drilled and tapped these holes, I'm going to go ahead and put a nylock nut on all of these just to kind of act as a jam nut, because on the other side we're only tightening against plastic. I don't want it to crush the plastic or for these to go ahead and rattle loose after a while. So here's the nylon locking nut we're going to go ahead and use, and these should hopefully stop those from ever rattling loose. Okay, the last thing to go ahead and do is to wire up this fan. So I think what I'm going to do, there's a battery disconnect here with a couple of small wires coming off of it. I believe these go to the light switch, which is located right there. I'm going to go ahead and come off of this battery disconnect switch with 2 more wires and connect our fan right here. Okay, we'll start by removing the switch so that we can access the mounting studs for our 2 terminals. Just so I don't short out that switch, one of the cables is running down here and it's attached to the top of the starter. So I'm going to go ahead and unhook that just so we don't short it out while sliding it out of the hole. In order to get to the other side of that and disconnect the battery, we have to go ahead and take this front panel off. So it's only 4 bolts holding this on, and then once we get those 4 bolts out, we can go ahead and disconnect the other side of the battery. Much like the disconnect switch, these also have nuts on the backside and are not very easy to access. Okay, so we've got this cover off. There's our positive terminal. We'll go ahead and get that one disconnected, and then we can pull the switch the rest of the way out. I think we're going to have to go ahead and disconnect the wires on the back of this switch as well. Okay, and there's our switch out. So we're going to come off of the top of this switch, sorry, the bottom of this switch, so that as soon as you turn this on, our fan has got power. Shut this off, that kills power to the whole machine, including the fan. Okay, so I've got a couple of ring terminals for my hot and my ground, and I got a couple of these bullet connectors. I didn't have any of the heat shrink bullet connectors, but that's what the fan already had on it, was bullet connectors. So I'll just use these regular ones with a little piece of heat shrink tube over afterwards. Something I always try to do, wire is really expensive, but if I'm ever scrapping a car or just buying something for parts, I usually like to pull the wiring harness out of it. So this is a piece of wiring harness out of, I think, a Jeep TJ. But you get really good OEM quality wire. It's always color coded, so you can usually find the colors you need for projects like this, and it's essentially free. They're not going to give you anything for it at the scrapyard, so you might as well take it out. So it looks like the fan has got 14 gauge wire, and it's got a black and a blue. So I'm going to go with, so this chunk of harness has got a black right here, but it's a little big, and these are all a little bit small. Let me go see if I can find a better piece in my box of treasure. Now there it is. This is all harnesses that I've scavenged out of vehicles I'm getting rid of, and parts and whatnot. So we're looking for a black and blue 12 gauge, or sorry, 14 gauge out of this box. I'm sure we can find something. Another thing that's nice about saving harnesses like this is you get a lot of these OEM connectors, like these weather tight, or sorry, not weather tight. I can't remember what these are called, but these are like the GM style, and these can be extremely expensive to buy individually. Weather pack. Those are called weather packs, so those are GM weather pack connectors. And here's a chunk of black right here. I probably only need about 2 feet. So this will be for our ground. Now I just need to find a blue for our hot. Again, all salvaged from a Jeep. This is full of breakers and relays. These fuses, these can be 10 bucks a piece, so it adds up quick. I'm not seeing any blue, but here is a blue, or a red with a blue stripe, and that will work for me. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, it's my machine. That was a bit of a struggle, but we got our blue and our black for our hot and negative. So let's go ahead and get these wired up. Okay, so we'll probably hook our ground right here to this screw. It's nice and easy to get to. Leaving myself a little bit of extra so I can tie them up after. So Because I don't have a heat shrink terminal for this, I'm going to go ahead and put my heat shrink on the wire before I crimp my terminal on. And then I'll go ahead and crimp on my ring terminal. And our hot terminal, it's going to go on the bottom side of our switch here. It's the same thing, I'll just try to get a rough length. There. Heat shrink. And then our bullet connector. So what I'll do is once these are plugged in, I'll actually slip the heat shrink over the entire thing and heat shrink the whole connection. So now we can start putting all of this back in place. I just realized now that I had this, the battery disconnect is connected to the ground circuit. So it just means that our ground is going to get connected to here. And our hot will go directly back to the battery. I'm gonna have to go ahead and put a larger terminal on here. It's a little better. Kind of destroyed my heat shrink though. Yeah, we'll go ahead and slide this one over this ring terminal. So you like how that crimper wrecked it. Okay, got another piece on there. We'll go ahead and get this hooked to our ground and then get the positive rain over to the battery. I really don't like how this is, trying to put these on. I think I'm going to drill these. They're too big to drill for 1/4 inch, but I think I've got some 1/4 inch riv nuts that'll work in there. Alright, so this is what I'm going to end up putting in there. That way there's no nut on the back side. For those of you that aren't familiar, this is a riv nut. So it uses a rivet gun like this. You put it through the hole. And then when you crimp it, the knurled portion holds, and there's a small like bulge that keeps it inside the hole. So we'll go ahead and open those up and put a couple of riv nuts. That way there we can stop fighting with it. Alright, sorry about that, I forgot to hit record, but I've got those. I just opened them up with a step drill, installed my 2 riv nuts. Now we can just use a regular 1/4-20 bolt. No nut, trying to fight on the backside. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of Loctite on there so that they don't back off. Again, because we're tightening against plastic, I don't like to go super tight, so the Loctite should help. Off camera, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of the connections, and I'll bring you guys back once we're ready to test out the fans. Alright, so off camera I got this all buttoned up. Got my connections all heat shrunk. Connected to the battery, everything kind of zip tied up out of the way. And then I went ahead and tacked those nuts onto this cover. That way there you don't need two people to take off the battery cover. So I'm going to go ahead and get that bolted back up, and that'll be it for the fan install. Last thing to do is going to be to put our sound deadening material on the inside of the seat and the inside of the footwell there. Okay, got that all wrapped up. I got some acetone and a rag. Gonna go ahead and wipe this down, and then we'll go ahead and apply our kill mat. That's just double-sided tape, basically. Peel it off, place it on, and then use a rubber roller to make sure it's good and tight. Okay, I think that wraps it up for this video. I've got the heat mat on there. We got our fan wired up. Got our controls fixed. Alright, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you want to see some more videos like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you like this video and you got something out of it, it helped you learn something or helped you make a decision on one of these for yourself, go ahead and hit that like button. I've got some more plans for this machine, some other upgrades such as a foot bar, somewhere to put your feet, because right now it's a little tight on space. I've ordered a muffler blanket, which is also supposed to help with the underhood temperatures. I want to convert that over to a hydraulic thumb from a manual thumb. So stick around and you'll see this popping up on the channel from time to time as we do some more upgrades.